Okay, we are ready. Let's go.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the April 20th, 2022 meeting of the Danbury Planning Commission. I'll open tonight with the roll call. Ms. Hofstetter. Helen?
You're muted, Helen.
Here.
Okay. Mr. Chiocchio.
Here.
Mr. Sylvain.
Here.
Mr. Renz is absent. Mr. Haas is absent. And Chairman Finaldi is here. So we do have a quorum and we do not need to seat any alternates this evening. Commission members, previously distributed was a copy of the minutes from the April 6, 2022 meeting. Unless there's any changes, I'll entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The minutes are accepted. For the record, our next regular meeting is scheduled for May 4th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. A couple of things. I will read the virtual meeting introduction. This meeting of the Danbury Planning Commission is being held on Zoom as a virtual meeting. Even though this meeting is a virtual meeting, members of the public and interested parties continue to have the opportunity to participate in the meeting in a couple of different ways. You can participate via Zoom and see the audio and the video, or you can call in by phone and participate via audio only. Please be aware that we may have to mute your microphone or telephone to avoid an echo or some other background noise. Instructions on how to participate in the meeting appear on the City of Danbury website, and all of the documents and materials that apply to the matters to be discussed during this meeting, including the agenda, are also available on the City of Danbury website. As always, if you have any questions regarding how to participate in the meeting, please contact the City of Danbury Planning and Zoning Department. As a reminder, the entire meeting will be posted on and can be seen on the City of Danbury website. We will follow the posted agenda as per standard practice. If prior to the meeting, any questions or comments on agenda items were submitted via email to the Planning and Zoning Department, those comments will be read during the appropriate portion of the meeting. Finally, please remember that technology glitches do sometimes occur. Please be patient if that happens. One additional thing before we move to the public hearings, commission members, under other matters tonight, we will take up the matter of nominations for the position of vice chair of the Planning Commission. So that will be one item we will be inserting into our agenda toward the end. With that said, we'll move right to our first public hearing this evening. 100 Mill Plain Investors, LLC, application for revised special exception, revised site plan approval for conversion of professional office space to medical office space, Shweta, DDS, in the CA80 zone, 100 Mill Plain, C14058, special exception number 7 to 8. I will read the legal notice at this time. Legal notice. Notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission of the City of Danbury will hold public hearings commencing at 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, April 20th, 2022, in a web-based meeting hosted on Zoom to consider the following matters. 1, 100 Mill Plain Investors, LLC, application for revised special exception, revised site plan application for conversion of professional office space to medical office space, Dr. Shweta, DDS, in the CA80 zone, 100 Mill Plain Road, C14058, special exception number 728. Copies of these applications are on file in the Planning and Zoning inspection. Parties and interested citizens shall have an opportunity to be heard at this time. Agenda to be posted will include instructions on how to access the Zoom meeting and application materials and view the meeting in real time on YouTube. Arnold E. Finaldi, Jr., Chairman, posted on City website and Town Clerk's office on April 7th, 2022, published in the News Times on April 8th, 2022 and April 15th, 2022, purchase order 2022-174. Commission members, several documents that pertain to this application were previously distributed. There is a staff report dated April 18, 2022, a copy of the site plan, copy of the application, and a couple of other things. With that said, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application?
Unmute. He has to unmute.
I believe the applicant has to unmute.
Mr. McMillan, there you go.
Yeah, I'm here. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, my name is Doug McMillan. I'm the architect for the project. We're an architectural firm located in Ridgefield, Connecticut. The staff report, I feel, basically covers what we're doing. renovating existing first floor office space, 2,634 square feet, into a 6-seat dentist office with a front entry vestibule, reception area, and sterilization room, and handicap bathroom. We went through and had the surveying associates update, or New England Land Surveying, update the parking schedule, and there is adequate parking for this medical use. So, I think we've kind of met the criteria. We're obviously not expanding the footprint of the building or anything like that. This is all an internal renovation.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anyone else in favor? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? So Jen, what kicked this over to special exception again is the fact that it's a medical use, it's a dentist, and all those become special exceptions regardless of size. Is that true?
That's correct.
Okay.
So at this point, yeah, it's the way we treat this office building, because it's not necessarily pre-existing non-conforming, but it was approved back in the 80s before special exceptions were required for chip generation. So we handle the medical separate, and we've been keeping track of it since they started putting medical in there. And the intent was always, if they exceeded 500 vehicle trips for the medical, they would need to go, they would have to come in with the traffic study. So they're at, I believe, 485.
Yes.
So yeah, so the next change in use would require a traffic study. But other than that, staff has no comments.
Okay.
And you can close the hearing if you choose to.
Okay. Well, commission members, this is a nice simple one to get started. I'm very happy about that. I will ask the members of the commission if they have any questions for the applicant. It's
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question.
please.
What was the existing use of that first floor area?
It was what I would call just general office. I don't know who was in there, but it was just a regular business use.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, commission members? We're not waiting for any departmental reports or anything like that, commission members. So unless anyone has anything else, I'll entertain a motion to close if you so please.
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Motion made by Mr. Kiokio, seconded by Ms. Hofstadter. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? That public hearing is closed. Jen, do you want to move that to, well, we don't have to, well, want to move it to old business or just keep going here?
No, if you can move it to old business so you can discuss it and provide guidance.
Okay, can anyone make a motion to add this matter to item 2 under our old business agenda? Mr. Sylvain makes the motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Kiokio, I think it was. Okay. Okay, all in favor of moving this to item 2 under our old business agenda, please say aye.
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 Opposed. This matter will go to item 2 on our old business agenda. We are moving right along to the second public hearing this evening. Laurel Draper, application for special exception site plan approval for self-storage, modern self-storage in the IL40 zone. 12 Great Road, L16010, special exception number 782. I'll read the legal notice for this one as well. Legal notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission of the City of Danbury will hold public hearings commencing at 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, April 20th, 2022, in a web-based meeting hosted on Zoom to consider the following matters. Number 2, Laurel Draper, application for special exception revised site plan approval for self-storage, modern self-storage in the IL40 zone, 12 Great Pasture Road, L16010, special exception 782. Copies of these applications are on file in the Planning and Zoning Office for public inspection. Parties and interested citizens shall have an opportunity to be heard at this time. Agenda to be posted will include instructions on how to access the Zoom meeting and application materials and view the meeting in real time on YouTube. Arnold D. Finaldi Jr., Chairman, posted on city website and town clerk's office, April 7th, 2022. Published in the News Times on April 8th and April 15th, 2022, purchase order number 2022. Commission members, several documents that apply to this matter were previously distributed. There is a staff report dated April 7th, I believe, and several other documents have been disseminated prior to the public hearing. With that said, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application? I believe Attorney Marcus.
Yes, if I may, again, for the record, Neil Marcus, Kona Wolf PC 158 Deer Hill Avenue, on behalf of the applicant. And again, this application doesn't need a tremendous amount of introduction. I've read some of the prior proceedings, even though I was not involved in the earlier iterations. But at this point, Mike Mizuko, who has been involved from day one, will really take over and run through the proposal. I mean, it's known, should be well known to the commission at this point as to its location. And we do think that, at least I think, from having reviewed the comments at the prior meetings, that Mike's new plan that we'll go through today addresses most of those. Again, generally, interestingly enough, there's just a rash of self-storage applications and projects, some of them under construction in the general area, whether going from New Milford down into Richfield. It's amazing how this market at this point in time is pretty underserved. And again, there were two things about self-storage over the years. There was a resistance to the self-storage facilities that were orange and looked like tin cans with garage doors. Those were kind of a thing of the past. You don't see much of that going on anymore. Right now, which is was started years ago by Westies over on Kenosha, really kind of sets the pace. When Westies, which was a project that I did many years ago for the Arredondos, was proposed first to the city, the planning staff, and I'm trying to remember. I remember Wayne Skelly was the zoning enforcement officer when we first went in informally, and Joe was our temporary planner in those days. And the two of them saw our original plan for Westies and said, "You got to be kidding me, Neil. What are they really building here?" I said, "A self-storage facility." And at that time, this facility that was built on Kenosha was similar to ones that had already been built in Portchester and in Wilton and other down county areas. But the nature of self-storage now is much different. And what you're seeing tonight and have seen up to this point is what I'll call the state of the art, the completely self-sufficient electronic high-tech self-storage in buildings that look like they are a cross between office and industrial sites. And it's a market, as I say, that appears now to be just underserved, because there's certainly a lot of facilities that I've been involved in. I've got a couple of applications going on in self-storage right now up in New Milford and Brookfield. And in all of these markets, it seems to be something that's needed. For most of the towns that we appear in with self-storage, everybody breathes a sigh of relief, because it's a use that normally is a positive tax payer for the town, because it does not require educational services. It doesn't require, police and ambulance. I mean, it's just a low intensity use of property. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask you to consider this application as a proposal that is appropriate for the market that we're in. And a lot of that, by the way, is a result of the housing market that we are in, which I don't need to tell most of you, has been incredible. And it doesn't seem to be subsiding yet, even though, like every other boom market, it's probably going to flatten out at some point and recede as opposed to expand. But we don't see that coming down the road for a while as a result of the incredible housing market. Storage is just goes hand in glove with it. So I'll let Mike take over at this point and explain to you the actual plan itself.
Thanks, Neil. Good evening.
Thank
For the record, Mike Mizuko, professional engineer. My office is in Danbury, representing the applicant. And we had filed a previous application for basically the same project. And we had withdrawn that because there was some concern about encroachments in the rear of the property near the wetland boundary. And so since that time, we did have Jim McManus back out to the site and reflag that line, which originally was done by Henry Moeller, some years ago, probably in 2005 or 2006. And so what we found was the line was, it was slightly different, but it wasn't drastically different. And so we just took that new line, and I'll just walk you through, if I can share my screen.
Oh, let me look. Hold on. Okay, hang on. Oops, wrong thing. I hit the wrong thing. Woohoo. Hang on, Mike. I'm trying.
Okay, no worries.
There we go. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, everybody see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, awesome. So you see the WL line that's in blue here?
Yes.
Okay, that's the most current line that was done by Jim McManus. And if you look, I kind of made it a gray line because that's my lighter shaded line, just to show. I can highlight that there just so you can see. So that was the original line that Henry Moeller did. So you can see it's pretty close. It's up in this area here. Jim's line was further back, and then it crosses over and was a little bit closer, and then a little bit closer here. So what we did was we just basically took the detention basin and moved it back to keep within that boundary limit of the wetlands. And we still had just a small encroachment into the wetlands with the riprap outlet, which was similar to the previous plan because we did have that encroachment down in this area under the previous layout. And one of the other things that we did was, because the basin became a little bit smaller, the other plan had a couple intermediate like berms just to get the flow around, to circulate around. We took them out, and we felt that it really wasn't necessary for the type of use because it's mostly building. It's not a storage facility for a landscape business or equipment or anything like that. And so it also helped with the floodplain compensation numbers that we had to just confirm that we didn't have any excess filling, even though it was probably filled prior to the applicant owning the property. But that's what these lines here are. We picked those lines up from the original topo mapping just to see what the difference was compared to how it exists today. And New England Land Surveying did pick up some more spot elevations. When we were out there, it really wasn't as bad as we thought. We thought maybe there was more filling in there, but it really isn't. It just needs to be cleaned up, and the applicant is in the process of cleaning that up. There was an ash pile here that has already been cleaned up and is not in the wetlands right now at this point. So that was the change that we did back here. And then the other issue that we had that we went back and forth on was just the amount of parking what was required, loading spaces required. And so to address that, what we ended up doing was we took the lowest floor at the back, which is we're calling the basement. And we just took an area and came into the building and eliminated that portion of the building to provide 1,000 or like 2 loading spaces within that area, which is this hatched area, in addition to the one that we have here. So we have the 3 loading spaces, and we still maintain the other parking spaces that we had originally. And if I go to the site plan, there's just under, well, there's 59,000, slightly over that, of gross floor area. When you take into account the area, the floor area within the walls of the building, exterior walls, and you exclude out elevator shafts and stairwells. So therefore, we would need 3, based on that, we would need 3 500 square foot minimum loading areas, which we have now. And we did get comments back from engineering. There's a handful of things that we need to just address there. One of them was just more questions about this easement area, which the adjoining property owner provided to access the rear of the property where the detention basin is for maintenance purposes, because here is that retaining wall that wraps around the back because of the grade difference. So that was one of the comments, and the drainage calculations were printed without the pond report, so I just have to include that. And they just wanted clarification on one of the cross section here. So I just need to clarify these lines for the engineering department. And then they just asked about fencing. So our response was that it's really in a remote area and you already have protection by the retaining wall here. So we're feeling that fencing around the back side of this and the south side is not warranted, as it's just kind of remote. And then as far as staff report comments, mostly everything has been addressed. There was just a comment about, dumping of snow within the detention basin. And we feel it's not really much different than the water getting in through the drainage system into that area. And it's not as if we are dumping directly into a water body or a river. And so the concern is really not as great, because this detention basin has a wet bottom. So there's a lot of settlement that will occur within the basin before it even gets out of here, even if you're dumping some snow that has maybe some sand and salt mixed into that. But again, there's also the opportunity to store the snow along the southern property line, which was allowed in that agreement with the adjoining property owner. So I think that was really, we're getting down to the end of this thing. And I know Ethan Draper wants to speak on the, as far as like the demand for parking and the, how often people visit a facility like this, what the turnover, how many times they visit the site, if they have a unit, how often they frequent it. And I'll, at this point here, if there's no questions, if you have questions for me right now, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll turn that over to Ethan.
Just a quick question, Mike. It's Arnie. You mentioned you went back to EIC on this. EIC hasn't issued a ruling on this yet, have they?
They haven't, and we have a meeting with them next week. We had a site meeting with staff and a couple of members of the EIC this afternoon. And so we still have to go into them. Obviously, they don't really give much direction on a site walk, and we'll know more next week.
All right, good. I just wanted to remind my commission members that because EIC has not yet issued a ruling on this public hearing must remain open. I just wanted to make sure to remind my commission members of that. Okay, any other questions of Mr. Mizuko before we move on? Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Kyokyo, go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, can you give us a little more details on the easement? Is that recorded in the land records? What's?
It will be, and that was one of the comments from the engineering department, was to make sure that is filed officially. And, you know, Attorney Marcus, we have in him, we have one of the leaders in legal matters, and I'm sure he will process, file, and record whatever we need to do to address that, to meet the concerns of the engineering department.
Okay,
I
thank you.
can concur with that, absolutely.
Good enough. All right, if there's no other questions at this time for Mr. Mizuko, I'll ask if there's anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, if they'd state their name and affiliation for the record.
Yes, I would. My name's Ethan Draper, and I'm one of the owners of this project.
Okay, please proceed.
All right, so I just want to talk about this issue of parking that seems to keep coming up, and I just want to move past this. So what I decided to do is really thoroughly research this issue of parking myself by using firsthand data as well as local and national facts and statistics in the self-storage industry. Now, when reading Ms. Eminger's report from this past February, the first thing that stuck out to me when reading through it was the fourth comment on the second page that starts off by saying that the amount of parking spaces we have included complies with the minimum required spaces in section 8.c.4 of the zoning regulation. Now, included in this report were 10 facilities, along with Google Earth snapshots of each facility and its parking areas. While that provides a glimpse of the property layout, it does omit the square footage of 9 of these 10 facilities. It also omits the average number of visitors each facility sees on an average day. When providing the amount of parking for all 10 facilities, there was no specification showing which parking spaces were for visitors and which parking spaces the facility rented out as rentable space. While the pictures show mostly empty parking lots, I decided to visit 7 of these 10 facilities on Monday, February 28th, in order to get a better understanding and to provide the commission with what I found. I first drove to Extra Space in New Milford, and I noticed that there were 12 parking spaces in front of the facility directly across from 12 drive-up units. However, once I drove through the gate and looked around the facility, I knew that there was 0 parking spaces for tenants visiting their drive-up units. All spots are rented out by campers, RVs, and boats. And if a tenant wanted to park in front of their respective unit, then they'd be blocking one of the adjacent units. This is because self-storage doors are only about 10 feet wide, which is shorter than the length of an average vehicle. So then I drove to Extra Space in Brookfield and noticed in the report that there were 35 parking spaces behind the gate. However, 18 of those spaces were designated rented spaces and visitors were not allowed to park there. They also had 2 designated spaces where plow trucks were to push the snow, and this left 15 spaces for a facility with 4 separate buildings that totaled 98,600 square feet, according to the property listing report in Brookfield, Connecticut. Now, at public storage on Mill Plain Road in Danbury, I found that there are 7 designated parking spaces for this specific facility totaling 130,000 square feet. In the report, it states that there's additional parking in front of drive-up access and indoor access areas. However, when visiting the facility, I noticed that in that referenced area, there are hash marks instead of parking spaces, which proves that they are not additional parking, and instead they are loading and unloading areas. And one important point to focus on is that tenants are not allowed to park in front of drive-up units if they have an interior unit. Parking in front of the drive-up unit, as I said before, blocks that entire unit and partially blocks the adjacent units. So all tenants using interior units must park in the designated parking spaces, not in front of drive-up units. I also found that underneath the overhang, there were hash marks as well, and not parking spaces, differing from what was said in the report. Now, Life Storage on Kenosha Ave, as we have mentioned before, is roughly 138,000 square feet with 1,166 units, which is much bigger than the facility we were proposing. We previously recorded 2 hours of video footage recorded on Saturday, November 6th, and 2 hours of video footage recorded Sunday, November 7th, both of which were clear and sunny days. I found that between both days, only 8 vehicles visited the property. Saturday and Sundays are the busiest days, according to the property manager. At Life Storage, there are no marked parking spaces. However, directly across from the entrance was the company van, which was parked sideways and took up 3 parking spaces. There's also snow around the van, proving that it had sat there since the previous week, since it snowed the previous week. This was directly in front of the entrance where visitors would most likely want to park, proving that from a company perspective, they could block some of the closest parking spaces to the entrance and not have a problem of tenants not finding parking close enough to the building. When visiting CubeSmart in Ridgefield on Route 7, I noticed it was stated in the report that there were 15 marked parking spaces. This is false. When arriving on the property, I found that there was only 3 designated parking spaces, not 15. The area on the side and the rear of the building, as seen on the Google Earth picture provided, was not paved, had snow and ice covering it, and it was also rented out by the company and not for visiting tenants. The last facility that I went to was Prime Story on Ridgeberry Road in Danbury. This is the most comparable facility in the area because it's 67,340 square feet, which is slightly larger than our proposed facility. It also compares in the fact that there are no drive-up units in the building. And when visiting the property, I found out there were 4 parking spaces for visitors. The report states that there are 8 marked parking spaces. However, 4 out of the 8 spaces directly in front of the building are rented out. The large parking area that is also listed in the report does not specify the fact that all those spaces are rented out by the company and tenants visiting their units in the building are not allowed to park there. Now, on Sunday, April 10th, I recorded 4 hours of video footage at this facility. I chose this specific day and time because Saturday, which would normally see the highest volume of traffic, was a rainy and cold day. So I figured that any tenants that were planning on visiting their unit over the weekend would choose Sunday due to the better weather and convenient times. Now, over the 4-hour period, I recorded 3 vehicles entering the property, one of which was a box truck and would not fit in a regular parking spot. That means that only 2 vehicles entered the property over a 4-hour window period on peak hours on a Sunday when most people are off from work. This has proven to myself and should prove to everyone else that self-storage really has a low volume of traffic, and one can conclude that minimal parking is necessary. Now, once again, Prime Storage on Ridgeberry Road in Danbury has 4 parking spaces for a 67,000 square foot facility, where our proposed location will have 5 parking spaces for less than 60,000 square feet. Now, we have had our second full market and development feasibility study done, conducted by Self Storage 101, which is the leading consulting and management firm in the self-storage industry. They estimate that it would take our facility 18 months to reach capacity, which is extremely quick in the self-storage industry. To increase the traffic on their property, we wanted to estimate how many tenants we would see move into our facility if we reached capacity in 1 year. This would equal, on average, 1 to 2 vehicles per day moving into our facility, with weekends seeing a slightly higher volume. Now, according to Storage Cafe, a nationwide self-storage marketplace, which features over 25,000 self-storage facility listings, a survey was conducted to 1,700 self-storage tenants. Of those 1,700 responses, they found that 41% of tenants visit their units once a month. Using those metrics for our facility, that would equal 190 tenants visiting their unit once a month, which can be broken down to 6 to 7 tenants per day. The 5 parking spaces we will provide can surely accommodate the tenants visiting their units, while the loading area is designated for tenants moving in and out of the facility. Now, currently, as I'm speaking, I'm in Las Vegas attending the Inside Self-Storage World Expo and was able to talk to some experts in the self-storage industry with 30 plus years of experience. One point that stuck out to me during one of the seminars I attended was from Robert Bishop, who was a partner at Comps Development. And he said that there is on average no more than 7 vehicles at any given time on a property for a 100,000 square foot self-storage facility. And keep in mind that our facility is 30% smaller than that, and we have 5 parking spaces. As the applicant, it's ultimately my responsibility to make the facility as convenient for the customer as possible while efficiently running the business. Our facility will include signage, designate certain areas as no parking zones in order to sufficiently accommodate the maneuverability of large moving vehicles on the property. There will also be an on-site manager that will direct tenants where to park for either visitation or for moving their belongings in or out of the facility. Our website, which will include extensive information about our facility, as well as online reservations, rentals, and lease signings, will actually decrease the amount of prospective tenants visiting our office for inquiries. We are also providing three designated loading areas that will handle 8 to 10 vehicles at any given time, where tenants will be able to move in or out of their unit without taking up a parking space. Now, I've included facts, statistics from national companies to provide insight on the low amount of activity self-storage facilities receive, as well as firsthand data that I use using photos and videos of parking spaces at local facilities. I provided ample information to show that as developers, we have really done our due diligence to provide numerous evidence to answer the Commission's questions of enough parking. I've used all the facts and resources I can find while working closely with my engineer, who has previously worked on multiple self-storage facilities in the area, to come to the conclusion that our proposed facility has more than enough parking. All the information that I have provided above reinforces the original comment of number 4, that parking provided on the subject site complies with the minimum number of spaces required in the zoning regulation. Combined between myself, my partner, my professional engineer, there is a full understanding of the planning, development, and construction and operations of a self-storage facility. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Draper. Commission members, are there any questions for Mr. Draper or on his presentation? I would only comment that it was a very thorough presentation, and you clearly did your research and have some good data. So, and we thank you for that. We thank you for the effort you made.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anyone else in favor? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Okay. Well, as I mentioned earlier, EIC has not yet issued a ruling on this, so we cannot close the public hearing at this time. Attorney Marcus, before I ask for a motion to continue, was there anything you wanted to add?
No, Mr. Chairman, I agree that we need to finish up at EIC, and at that point, we can conclude the public hearing here. But as I say, if there are any questions that come up between now and the continuation date, if they come through Jen or Joanne, get it to me or to Mike, and we'll get a quick response. Because as I say, you've spent a lot of time as a commission already hearing this application, so we'd like to try to wrap it up and bring it to a conclusion. So we thank you for your time tonight and look forward to picking up in a couple of weeks after we meet with the EIC.
Thank you, Attorney Marcus. Commission members, unless there's anything else, I will entertain a motion to continue.
So moved.
Motion made by Helen. Seconded. Motion and a second to continue. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll try your minds. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? This matter will be continued to our next regular meeting, which again, as I mentioned earlier, is May 4th, 2022. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Commission members, we're going to keep moving right along. We have nothing under continuation of public hearings, so we're going to go right to our old business agenda. Item 1. Barbara Samuel L. and Joseph V. and Angelo P. Jr. Scalzo. Application for special exception revised site plan approval for use generating over 500 vehicle trips per day grocery store in the CCBD zone, 33 Crosby Street, I-13048 in the CCBD zone, special exception number 786. The draft resolution was previously distributed. See, it doesn't have a date on it, but I'm sorry, yes, it does, April 13th, 2022. And Jen, did you want to comment on it before we voted or say anything about it?
Just very quickly, there's only one condition of note, and that's number 5. The applicant shall obtain written evidence from the department stating that comments per the April 4th, 2022 staff report have been addressed. Again, as a reminder, we wanted a couple notes added to the zoning table and some updates, and they're currently working through that. So I'm sure they're anxious to submit so they can, once the commission approves it, they have to file the grant and then they'll be able to apply for the permits for the change in use. So, you know, that's the only condition of note.
Great,
Jen,
Jen.
that was for the, that was gonna be on the other property, right? Was it, I forgot what, there was, they were gonna do some work. Right?
Yeah, it was the crosswalk.
Crosswalk, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, the traffic engineer had requested it as part of this project. The applicant agreed to do the work, but asked for it to be under the Brookview Commons, the BRT project currently under construction. So Steve Sullivan is currently working with Rob Barone, who's our construction, he's in our construction services division, to work out those details.
Got it, thanks.
Any other questions for Jennifer on the draft resolution? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion, if you're so inclined, to approve the draft resolution of approval.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a
Yes,
motion to approve this application with the conditions noted. Okay.
Thank you, Helen. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Sylvain, second. Okay, a motion has been made and seconded to approve the resolution of approval with conditions. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The draft resolution of approval with conditions is approved. Thank you, everybody, for that.
Thank you.
And we're going to move right to item 2, which was a public hearing we closed this evening. Let me get to it. I'm sorry. Let's see here. 100 Mill Plain Investors LLC, application for revised special exception, revised site plan approval for conversion of professional office space to medical office space. Dr. Shweta DDS in the CA80 zone, 100 Mill Plain, C14058, special exception 728. We opened and closed the public hearing this evening. Does anyone want to comment to Jennifer? Guidance, any thoughts?
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
I don't have any issues with this. Pretty simple. It's just a quick, it's just a change of use for a small portion of the building. Looks like parking is more than adequate and the traffic is still within reasonable bounds there. So I don't see any issues with this.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Hofstadter.
I agree with Bob's comments. Just wanted to say that for the record.
Mr. Chairman, same here. No problems here. I agree with Mr. Kyokyo's comments.
And the chair makes it unanimous, Jen, so you've got your guidance.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll have that ready for the next meeting.
Okay, you'll see commission members moving right down to referrals. There's an item we're going to speak about. It looks like it's on our agenda for this evening, but we're actually going to take it up at the May 4th meeting. You may have noticed there was no link when the agenda was sent around on this. So again, we'll be talking about that on May the 4th. You'll see under new business 95 Mill Plain. And then we go down to correspondence, none, and under other matters. As I mentioned in our last meeting, we do need to fill the position of vice chair for the Planning Commission. And I'd like to ask for a nomination at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Bob Kyokyo to the position of vice chairman of the Planning Commission. He's been on the commission for years and has great experience, you know, with all of our activities and our, you know, our objectives, etc. So I think that he would make a great contribution in being able to substitute for the chairman as necessary. So it's my honor to nominate Bob Kiokio.
And thank you, Ms. Hofstadter. Do I hear a second?
I would love
Mr.
to second that and reiterate Helen's comments. And thank you, Bob, for stepping up to the plate with this.
Excellent. Any other nominations? Hearing none, the nominations are closed and we will take a vote. All in favor of Mr. Kiokio taking the position of vice chairman, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Congratulations, Bob. You are the vice chairman of the Danbury Planning Commission. Well done.
Thank you.
Yay.
I think.
He looks thrilled.
Bob's got an acceptance speech. It's going to take about an hour, everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Say thanks to everybody, and I'm just the lucky. I got a great commission. Not everybody, everyone does a great job, and I just couldn't be more happy. So thanks to all of you, really. Well done, well done.
It doesn't mean that you can miss a lot of meetings.
Yeah.
going forward.
That's right.
I'd like to announce my retirement. Like kidding.
You better not.
Something under for reference only, and a couple of other things. But unless there's anything else, ladies and gentlemen, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thanks, everybody.